Hello, I'm Clovis Casali in Paris, and this is Face Off. Today we look at the future of the French Socialist Party and more generally of the left wing. In the light of the recent electoral successes of Podemos in Spain and earlier of Syriza in Greece, can we imagine the radical left getting into power in France anytime soon? Have we just witnessed the first signs of a wind of change blowing through southern Europe, as some Spanish politicians are saying? To discuss all of this, we have in our studios two senior reporters, Philippe Tell from international radio station RFI and Jean-Marc Gonin from Le Figaro magazine. Welcome to the two of you.
Thank you.
My first question goes to you, Philippe. What's the equivalent in France of Spain's Podemos? Is there an equivalent?
Well, there's a person who'd like to think that they would be the equivalent. His name is Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and he's the head of the Parti de Gauche, the left-wing party, as it's called in this country, who was a former member of the Socialist Party, minister under Lionel Jospin, the prime minister until 2002, who broke away from the party because he was part of the left-wing group within the Socialists to form his own party. And he's all the way down the line said, I'm going to form a coalition with other smaller, far-left Trotskyist parties, even with the ecologists in France, to create what would be the equivalent of what we could see in Spain and what we've seen in Greece, to take over and move France forward with a movement of the people. But this hasn't really come off it yet. But Jean-Luc Mélenchon and his party, he's the one who would like to be the equivalent.
Jean-Marc, France has a strong left-wing tradition abroad. France is often seen as a country always on strike. Why is it that the far left in France has never really done very well in recent years, in recent ballots?
Well, you have given part of the answer, Clovis. First of all, there's not much space on the French spectrum for that kind of leftist party. First, you still have the remains of the Communist Party that has been a dominant party in the after-war period in France. It still exists. It's a small party, but they still occupy a big piece of the space. And the rest have always been composed of different parties, very rival between themselves.
There's no unity there.
There's no unity there. They are like chapel sects that are arguing about this and Trotsky and Mao and whatever. And they have, they are 10 in a party, 10 on the other party. They can't merge into a 20-head party. They prefer to have a fight.
And in some cases, you've even got some parties that can't agree within themselves about what to do. Like, for example, the ecologists, you've got those who think they should be in the government, who would really like to be part of François Hollande's team. Then you've got others within the same party who would like to join forces with Jean-Luc Mélenchon because they think the future is more with him.
And there's and also the reason also is that even the Socialist Party has never totally given up the idea of not revolution but Marxism as it is. I mean, part of them, there's still a debate in 2015 within the ranks of Socialist Party about social democracy.
We'll be discussing all of that a bit later. Let's now take a look at Podemos. Podemos, this party in Spain that did extremely well, notably in Barcelona with their candidate Ada Colau. Let's take a listen to what she said after triumphing in the recent local elections.
We are proud. This is not happening in Barcelona alone. This is a democratic revolution. It's unstoppable, and it's happening in Catalonia, Spain, and we hope to see it happen all over southern Europe.
Philippe and Jean-Marc, do you think that Ada Colau is right in saying that there's a wind of change blowing on southern Europe?
Well, I don't think you can generalize as she does. There is Greece and there is Spain. And there are good reasons why that kind of party is emerging in those two countries, because both countries are submitted to a very strict financial medicine because of public debt. So they have having extremely harsh austerity policies that put people unemployed. The social benefits have been cut. A lot of things. A lot of entitlements have been taken off from people. So there is a kind of higher public wrath against government, and those parties have grown from this terrain. I wouldn't say in Italy or in France, part of Southern Europe, in the definition she gives, would see the same kind of political formation appear.
I think also that I'm a little dubitative about the ability of all these young would-be politicians who suddenly found themselves catapulted into office when they are not professional politicians, that they're bought in on a wave of hope and anger against the traditional parties, notably corruption and divisions within Spain and also Greece, and the incapacity of those countries to put the economy back on the rails. So they're bought in as a sort of wave of hope for millions of people who feel that they've been left on the side of the road. But once they're in power, as we've seen in Greece, I'm wondering whether this new group of politicians in Spain are actually going to be able to pull off what they're promising, and there won't be quick dissatisfaction because they've overstepped the mark and been far too optimistic about their abilities without really knowing how to do the job.
And let's go back to France. A lot of critics of François Hollande say that he is undertaking austerity policies. Do you agree with that?
Not in the. He is somehow. He has to reform, but we are far away from austerity policies that are being applied to Greek citizens or Spanish citizens. Well, look at the social benefits. I mean, everybody fears that terrible cuts are going to happen. They are not. They are cutting some corners. French people are losing some advantages, but honestly, it's marginal. The bulk of the entitlement system is still there.
So no strong austerity?
No, I think the bottom line is that if you compare what's happened in Greece and you compare what's happening in Italy and what's happening in Spain and even what's happening in the United Kingdom, where there are cutbacks left, right and centre, France is having a really easy ride. There may be high unemployment and low growth, but the actual cutting down of public spending hasn't happened in this country, despite the pledges of the government to get the economy back on the rails. They need to bring down public spending, but I think they don't want to do it on the one hand because France has got a system that is admired and envied by many people all over the world, and second, because they're scared if they do, they're going to become even more unpopular. So we're in this situation where it's a bit of a weird situation, if you like, where people are saying, well, there is austerity in France, but there isn't really austerity as we would know it in more of the southern European countries.
One man who's criticised François Hollande's economic policies is a very famous author, best-selling author, Thomas Piketty, who was an advisor of François Hollande, who's now one of his critics. Here's what he thinks of European measures when it comes to economics and austerity, obviously.
What is very ironic in this story is to see that Germany and France did not, luckily, apply to themselves after the Second World War the absurd remedies we forced upon others. Those two countries had a debt of more than 200% of their GDP. That's more than Greece today. And what did we do? We used inflation. We used exceptional measures with the restructuring of the debt haircuts. All of Germany's external debt was even cancelled in 1953. So it's unbelievable now that we're telling Spain and Greece that they need to pay back every last euro, though we know it's not going to work. I believe the time has come to understand that there are alternatives in terms of national policies, and especially we need a strategy for the whole of the Eurozone to reduce this debt.
When you hear Thomas Piketty, do you think that his views are influencing more and more decision makers in France?
I don't know. I think his views are definitely influencing those who are against the idea of paying more money out, and I think that may also have buoyed the support for these far-left groups in southern Europe. But I think in France the situation is somewhat different, where the remarks of someone like Thomas Piketty will not bring any support to the far left, it will bring support to the far right, Marine Le Pen and the National Front, because they're the ones who are complaining about the economy, they're complaining about Europe, saying France should even leave the Eurozone completely to take hold of its own finances. So that will just boost, I think, a bit more support for her and her policies, not particularly for the left wing.
Well, he's an advocate of cancellation of the debt within the Eurozone, saying it's an internal zone because we all share the same currency and the debt is between the members of that club, so let's cancel it. That's his vision. That's why he speaks like this. It might be a sensible theory. I'm not an expert on this, but politically, when you see it politically, he forgets something. The discussion with Greece is stick and carrot. That is, I don't think Greece will have to pay back the last penny of its debt. But the carrot is we will cut the debt again if you reform your public policies. And I think this is a sensible argument.
Within the Socialist Party, you have many figures who share Thomas Piketty's views. They're called the so-called rebels, the so-called rebel MPs. There's a big congress, party congress coming up in June. There's already been an internal vote to decide on future policies, and that vote began. And in the first round, François Hollande's motion, the so-called combat des listes motion, came first. Does that mean that the Socialist Party has definitely become a social democrat party?
It means that the backbench rebels, the frondeurs as they're called in France, are going to have to calm down. They got 30% of the vote, which was a fairly good score, but they were far behind the score for François Hollande, which was all the confidence vote in François Hollande and Manuel Valls, the Prime Minister, which got over 60% of the vote. And they know that if they're going to carry on squabbling and causing trouble within the Socialist Party, we've only got 2 years to go before the next presidential election. They're going to be shooting themselves in the foot, and the Socialists will be out of office, and so will François Hollande. So I think we've seen the frondeur, we've seen the squabbling going on for the backbenchers. They've said what they want. They don't agree with the measures that François Hollande has been carrying out over the last 3 years. But I think that they've gone as far as they can because they know that if they carry on, then they're going to be out of office in 2 years' time and it'll be too late.
And they lack a leader. They have been trying hard to get Martine Aubry, Lille's mayor, who is a heavyweight in the party, and she never joined them. She encouraged them in the background, but when it came to, do you want to oppose François Hollande, she didn't, and she supported the main text.
And we'll see in the future if she takes on a leading role. Philippe Tell, Jean-Marc Gonin, thank you very much. This is the end of Face Off. Stay tuned. More news to follow on France 24.